Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we are going to talk about David Ricardo Talk concept, presented by Siti Indah Ayu Puspasari with ID number 037 from Economic Education Program, Surabaya State University.
Let's talk about David Ricardo's short biography.
David Ricardo was the third of 23 children of a Jewish family named Abraham Israel Ricardo, who worked as a broker. He was born in London in 1772. At a young age, he was very successful as a stockbroker on the Money and Capital Exchange in London. At a mass of fortune, he was quite decent enough to become independent. After that, Ricardo decided to leave the business world, and he focused his energy and time on thinking and writing on economic issues. David began to be interested in economic science in 1799, when he was living in bed when he began reading The Wealth of Nations Adam Smith. In 1817, he published a book entitled On the Principle of Political Economy and Taxation.
Let's talk about the assumptions of David Ricardo's theory.
The entire line used for wheat production and the labor force in agriculture helped determine the distribution of the industry. The second assumption is the law of diminishing return for the land. The third assumption that the land supply is constant. The fourth assumption is that the demand for wheat is inelastic. The fifth assumption is that labor and capital are variable input.
Let's talk about three classes of people, according to David Ricardo.
Business or capitalist society is the group that earns income in the form of profits, starting from business profit to investment returns. The second group is worker or laborer, this group that earns income in the form of wages. The size of wages is still very dependent on capital. The third group is landlord or aristocrat. This group earns income in the form of rent on land that is rented out to entrepreneurs or capitalists.
Let's talk about theories proposed by David Ricardo. A. Theory of comparative advantage.
Ricardo's famous theory is of the theory of comparative advantage, in which trade depends on comparative advantage or relative efficiency rather than absolute advantage. Ricardo considered that the state will tend to sell its goods relatively more efficiently in its production, so that through specialization, each country will benefit from foreign trade.
B. Working value theory.
Working value theory explains that the level of natural wages can determine the price level of a product because the cost of raw material have relatively constant properties while the level of natural wages is relatively volatile, adjusting to the general standard of cost of living. David Ricardo said that labor is the source of all wealth, so it was on that basis that David formulated the theory of the value of work. David reveals that capitalist profit become the basis of labor exploitation.
C. Land rental theory.
The high-low rent of a land is influenced by the fertility rate of the soil, because a land that is less fertile requires an average cost and higher marginal cost to manage it compared to a land with a higher level of productivity. David Ricardo's theory here does take into account the high-low land rent based on soil fertility rates and has not taken into account the location of the land, which was also able to affect the high-low land rent.
D. David Ricardo's monetary thinking.
During the period of 1809, England experienced inflation is quite high, so David tried to offer a solution by writing his first economic talk in 1811 entitled The High Price of Bullion. In his book, he said that the cause of inflation was due to the Bank of England issuing banknotes excessively.
E. The law of declining income.
In the law of declining income, if the output of a factor of production continues to be added without being balanced with an increase in other factor, it will initially increase total production, but if it has reached the maximum point, then additional production will only result in output decreasing in value. The law of diminishing returns states that if one kind of input or factor of production is constantly added while the other input remains or constant, it will initially result in an increasing return. But if it reaches a certain point or maximum, then the additional production or marginal product will decrease to produce a decreased output or diminishing return.
F. Wage theory.
Now, looking forward can be done without face-to-face. With technology, all can be easily done. Yeah, and done. The main thing in work is wages. Let's discuss the theory of wage theory from David Ricardo. Here we go. David Ricardo proposed the theory of wages by dividing wages into two types, namely natural wages and market wages. What is the difference between natural wages and market wages? Natural wages are wages that depend largely on the strength of demand and supply of labor in the market and are used as a reference for workers to live a decent life. What workers really receive it is namely market wages. If the market wage is higher compared with the natural wage, then prosperity will increase, and the number of married and birth rates will increase. The increase in birth causing the number of workers to increase so that the labor supply will increase. Okay, enough of our materials today. Thank you for your attention and sorry for any shortcoming related to the material that I convey. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.